Hi everyone, welcome to Convex, where we are celebrating experiment-driven marketing. My name is Rohit and I head the North American business for VWO. For those of you who haven't heard about VWO or Visual Website Optimizer, we provide an experimentation platform that allows marketeers to understand user journey from click to convert. For today's session, I'm really excited to be talking to Marty Greif, who was the president at SiteTuners, a strategic conversion rate optimization agency. Hey, Martin, I'm excited to have you with us today.
All right. How are you doing?
Very well. How about yourself?
Very well. Thanks for asking. I'm excited for the opportunity to speak with your audience.
Awesome. Before Marty starts off with his presentation, I want to inform you that you could join the Convex official networking group on LinkedIn and ask your questions from this presentation. With that said, Marty, the stage is all yours.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining today. Our conversation today is going to be about how to prove best practices by testing. Now, one of the things that people ask is, well, why do you have to prove best practices if you already know that they're best practices? And there's a couple answers to that. The first answer is, if you're new to a testing program, by testing something that you really expect to work, it gives more credibility to upper management for your testing program. So if you start out of the gate with some wins, this absolutely helps you to continue to test and potentially to start testing some of the more difficult things. The other thing that happens is, just because we know that they're best practices, it doesn't mean that it works 100 times out of 100 times. Best practices work, let's say 95 out of 100 or maybe 90 out of 100. Every website's different. So we're going to go through some best practices, and we're going to talk about testing them, and we're going to talk about what you should be measuring. But the idea here is, let's absolutely confirm that when you use these best practices on your website, you are indeed getting a return on investment. So with that said, a quick agenda slide. We're going to talk a little bit about us, and then we're going to talk about the 3 questions that your web page has to answer for visitors to convert. And then we're going to talk about actually putting these best practices to the test. Now, here's the thing, and we're going to talk about these 3 questions in a minute, but just keep in the back of your mind, I say on here the 3 questions your web page needs to answer for visitors to convert. Well, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about a landing page or your home page, or, interestingly enough, a page that was reached from another page in your website. Because when someone lands on a page, they ask these same 3 questions over and over and over again, although albeit sometimes not with the same urgency as they do on that first page that they land on. So a little bit about SiteTuners. We are a strategic conversion rate optimization agency. We do one thing and one thing only. We increase your conversions and help you to grow your business. All right. And it's all about, think of it this way. We are the persuasion people. So we're a strategic optimization, conversion rate optimization agency. We work with clients large and small, from people who maybe can attribute $1 million of value to their website to, we have many of clients who are multi-billion-dollar organizations. So we go from small to large and everything in between. Now, having said that, this is not about SiteTuners. This is about you and increasing your conversions. So let's talk about the 3 questions that frankly any page and your website has to answer for visitors to convert. And the 3 questions are really simple. Am I in the right place? How do I feel about this site or this page? And what am I supposed to do here? Now let's talk about that first question. Am I in the right place? Well, a lot of that is based upon the upstream messaging. I'll give you a silly example. All right. Let's say you had a lead generation site, and you said, I had a Google ad that said, free iPad with every registration. Okay. And people come to your site looking for a free iPad. Well, your site's about, let's say, insurance or, a subscription to a newspaper. It doesn't make sense. So that am I in the right place, doesn't match. Now, you can drive a lot of traffic, but they're not ever really going to be real prospects for you. So the issue issue there is the upstream messaging really has to. That's not just true from PPC or social or wherever they were when they go onto a page. It's also true when I go from page to page internally. If the page said, okay, on the, or if you had a link on your website and it said, view all of our barbecue products, the next page needs to say barbecue products, okay? And it's interesting how if the words aren't exactly matching, people start to think and they get confused. And when they get confused or they have to think, that's called cognitive friction. And when you have cognitive friction, people tend to bounce. So the next question, how do I feel about this site? If they're not feeling comfortable and safe, because again, we need to make people feel safe when they land on a page, then again, they're going to bounce. And then what am I supposed to do here? When you make it hard for visitors to figure out what they're supposed to do, again, that's cognitive friction and they bounce. So let's talk about each one of these in some detail. So am I in the right place? Okay. So it's matching the visitor intent and their expectations from that upstream messaging. And as I mentioned before, it doesn't matter whether it's a PPC ad or it's a link and title on one page to the next. And are you forcing the visitors to think? And here's why that's important. You should never force your visitors to have to think. You have to, and this is going to sound terrible, and I apologize in advance, but you have to design your website as if your visitors were lazy and or stupid. And the reason I say that is we all have just some amount of patience. And if this is, for the sake of argument, your gas tank of patience in your brain, and if this is full, you don't know if they're full of patience or, the dog just peed on the rug or, their boss just yelled at them or, you have no idea what happened and they might have very little patience. And every time you make me think, you're using up a little of that patience until I leave. So don't make people think. So the question is, am I in the right place? Well, let's take an example of am I in the right place? And this first example, which is interestingly enough, from a brand, Progressive, the question was in Google, New York homeowners insurance quote. That's what I put in there. And the Progressive insurance ad said, Progressive home insurance quote, homeowners online today. And then there's protect your home and possessions at an affordable price. So am I in the right place? And I would tell you that this site with Flow, okay, who we've probably all seen, is making me think. Because I have to think, do they sell insurance in New York State? All right. I wanted a New York State homeowners. This is a national ad. I'm not comfortable. And so as odd as it sounds, this does not match or answer the question, am I in the right place, without making me think. And here's the thing, folks. Brands can get away with this. All right. But just because you can get away with it doesn't mean that it's the right answer. Progressive would have been much better off if they had said New York homeowners insurance on here. So this is an example, believe it or not, of I don't know if I'm in the right place or not. So this is an example of what not to do. Same Google search, and the ad was compare top 10 homeowners insurance, best New York home quotes in minutes. Okay. Then it says compare top rated New York insurance companies serving New York. And when I get to the page, it's all about, New York homeowners insurance rates. All right. The page is about New York. It's the title of the page is about New York. So am I in the right place? I am absolutely in the right place because this happens to be about New York homeowners insurance. And hopefully that's kind of obvious. Now, again, I go back to the brand is able to not get away with that. But if you're not a brand, and frankly, even if you are a brand, you should match that upstream messaging. When you match the upstream messaging, your conversion rates go up because people aren't having to think. So the next question that people ask is, how do I feel about this site? And frankly, if your site looks like it was from 1980, well, or maybe not 1980 because that's not happening, 1999, right? They're not going to feel good. And are there trust elements on it? So how do I feel about that site is something that happens, instantaneously when someone lands on a page. So here's an example. If I did a Google search and I was looking to buy a Weber Summit E470 4-burner liquid grill, and I did this, and I come here and it shows me a picture of the grill, and this is a $2,000 product. Well, $1,899. For me, that's $2,000, right? And so, how do I feel about this? Well, you know what? It's a clean design, but I don't know anything about these people. And it turns out the Academy Sports and Outdoors is a brand in the American, I think, somewhere out west. But I wasn't familiar with them. So when I get to this page, I might say, okay, it's a reasonably clean site. I'm okay with it. But let me show you an example of the right way to do this. Same exact search. Weber Summit E40 4-burner grill. Okay, Weber Summit E40 grill at barbecue guys. Now, look at this. Up in the top right-hand corner, they've got a phone number. And then below that, you'll see Inc. 5000, accredited business, 100% safe and protected. There are reviews with stars, all right? I mean, seriously, if you look at this site compared to the other site, there is trust all over this site, okay? So if the question is, how do I feel about this? I feel safe here. It's the same exact grill. It's the same exact price, okay? But on this site, I'm going to feel safe. So, it's obvious, I would think. Which site do you think converts better, okay? And the answer would have to be this one, because when I land here, I'm going to feel good about this. If I'm going to spend $2,000 online, I need to feel safe. Now, I will tell you phone number, and this is true not just in the United States, but across the planet. Phone number in the top right-hand corner is the biggest trust symbol anywhere. Real companies have a phone number in the top right-hand corner. Now, having said that, there's reasons why you might not want to have a phone number. You don't have people answer the phone. You're not there 7 days a week or 24 hours a day. It's okay to have a phone number that goes to some type of, IVR, some kind of system that gives them useful information. And yes, having the phone number in the top right-hand corner does increase conversion. It increases conversions. It also increases phone calls, but not as much as you think. So the third question that people ask is, what am I supposed to do here? And so you want to use visual emphasis to direct people into the correct place. And you want to have clear navigation elements and clear calls to action. So, for example, this is kind of a before of a company, Everton. They sell kitchenware in Australia, and they're a fairly good-sized company. And that, as you've seen, they've got a phone number in the top right, which is great, and they've got some other trust, secure ordering, manufacturer warranty, trusted by customers, Australian family business. So some good things on here. But this page, if you were to see the entire page, and you can go in the Wayback Machine if you want to see this, but it's basically a collection of things that they thought, let me just throw this out here, and you could look at these knives or this cook set or this. And so it was all about them. It's what they wanted to put there. And frankly, okay, this is what a lot of companies do. And this is an e-commerce site. It doesn't have to be e-commerce. It's the same thing, whether it's a lead gen site or whatever. A lot of companies do that. It's all about me, and they throw everything they possibly can that they think that people need to see or learn about them up on their website. And that's not going to help. So what am I supposed to do here is better answered by visual navigation, all right? And here's an example of visual navigation where they've taken their different categories, and there's more below here. This is a current version of their site. They've got bakeware, cookware, and they've got category level images, and then underneath that, they've got some sub-nav with some links, and so that people can go directly what they're looking for here. So remember, we talked about before, am I in the right place? How do I feel about this? And what am I supposed to do here? Well, this site absolutely answers all of that these days, okay? And the point here, though, on visual navigation is it allows your visitor to feel like they're in charge. So they can look at this and say, okay, I'm here for cookware or glassware, or whatever it is. Visually, they can see it. Now, here's the other thing, and I know this is going to sound strange, But I already said you have to design for your visitors as if they were lazy and or stupid, because all these categories have what we call category level images. You're not showing one type of bakeware or one type of cookware, because we've seen that when you only show one image on a category, some people look at it and say, you know what, that must be all they sell. And then they bounce because they want some different type. With a category level image, you're taking away the thinking. And we already know I don't like to have to make people think on a website. So what am I supposed to do here? It's really clear. And this page scrolls down. They've got choices. And I will tell you, the best practices rule of thumb is 3 to 5 items now, or 3 to 5 things to choose from. Now, they've got 4 in a row. They could have 3 on a row. They could have 5 on a row. And interesting enough, you could have 5 rows. All right. So that would be a 5 by 5 or 25 set matrix. I'm not suggesting you do that, but what happens is people look a row at a time. Is this row interesting? No. Next row interesting? So first they're deciding, is anything in the row interesting? Then they look at the row. So that's where that 3 to 5 comes in. All right, now having said that, let's put the best practices to the test. And here's what I'm going to suggest you do. These are the 4 best practices that we're going to talk about. And we're going to describe how each one of these answers the different questions that we've just put. Well, static versus rotating banners, visual navigation versus God knows what on a homepage, lowering a number of form fields, and trust symbols in the header. So let's talk about each one of these in a little bit of detail. So static versus rotating banners, why test it? Well, motion is distracting for visitors, and rotating banners, big rotating banners, you've seen these, it pushes the important content down. So why is motion distracting for visitors? Well, I'm going to look like an idiot again, but, we are literally animals. And by that, I mean, we used to be cave people, and motion could potentially signal danger. It's like, oh my God, the bear's coming to eat us. We see motion. And so anytime something moves, we go, and I'm exaggerating, what's that? What's that? And you're stopping us from concentrating. And that, again, is cognitive friction. So what are you going to measure? You're going to measure bounce rate, you're going to measure conversion rate, and you're going to measure the number of pages that people actually use or go to see now that we've gotten rid of rotating banners. So an example here for Sephora is this was a rotating banner, okay? And then here they've got a static banner, and they've made it really easy. So the question here is, this answers the question, am I in the right place? And it also answers, what am I supposed to do here? It makes it really easy. We've done these tests, I can't tell you how many times. And depending upon the site, we have typically seen that the conversion rate when you remove a rotating banner increases by 10 to 15%. We've seen that time and time again. And now, having said that, you have to replace the rotating banner with something worthwhile as a static banner that actually answers the questions, am I in the right place? How do I feel about this? And what am I supposed to do here? So you can't just put anything up. Now, I know there's a lot of pushback at a lot of companies because there's different constituents who want to make sure that their information's on the homepage. But let me say this, and let me be as blunt as possible. None of your constituents matter. The only people that matter are your visitors. And that's why we test this, all right, to prove to these constituents within your organization that the right answer is to give people exactly what they're looking for and not make them think. And we've also seen, and you can test this too if you want to, that the engagement on rotating banners goes down from the first to the second to the third. And we've seen people that have got 7 or 10. By the time they get to that 7th or 5th, the number of people that are looking at it has dramatically changed. They're not going to sit and look at a rotating banner. So again, by testing this, you're answering the questions, am I in the right place and what am I supposed to do here? And like I said, our experience has been that you can get a 10 to 15% lift on your conversion rate of the traffic that actually goes through, in this case, a home page. If you've got rotating banners on other pages, it's the same deal. But primarily, this is a home page issue. All right. So the next in the list is visual navigation. versus, again, a mashup of all sorts of things. Well, visual navigation allows people to easily find, the ways to categories and pages that they're interested. And what are you measuring here? You're measuring bounce rate, conversion rate, and time on page. Now, interestingly enough, okay, the time on page, bounce rate, I shouldn't even have to say this. I know we all know this. Bounce rate, we always want the bounce rate to go down. The conversion rate, we always want the conversion rate to go up. Now, time on page, interestingly enough, sometimes we want the time on page to go up. Sometimes we want the time on page to go down. And the reason you want the time on page to go down here is it proves that they are not struggling to find what they're looking for on your page when you use visual navigation. So this, you're looking for a decrease for time on page, and conversely, an increase of the number of pages that they're going to. All right, so those are the things you measure here. So here's an example of a before and after, and same exact company. And if you look at this, instead of, and this is what I was talking about earlier, instead of, here, let me tell you everything you need, because this is the stuff you need to know that, frankly, nobody cares about, okay, and that's what's happening on the left. Two, I'm here to buy product, and I've got the categories of product, face care, hair care, skin care, a sample kit, shop product. So this site, I will tell you, we actually have a case study on this. This increased their conversion rate by about 300%. And really what happened here is, instead of not knowing what to do, this answers, the question, the reason with visual navigation, it absolutely answers the question, what am I supposed to do here? But it also, frankly, because of all the design elements, because it's not just visual navigation that's here, you'll also notice there's more trust on this page now. There's the visual navigation here. There's clear calls to action here. It's not an army of words marching around the page looking for meaning anymore. So I feel good about it. So, and again, this is an e-commerce example, but the same principles apply. And we've done the same exact thing on anything from subscription sites to lead gen sites. Make it really easy for me visually to determine what it is I'm looking for here. All right. And that's the difference between the front and the back. So you're testing to make sure that your conversion rate goes up, that they're seeing more pages here, and their time on your home page should decrease. So the next question on the list, or the next thing to test, is to lower the number of form fields. And I can't tell you how many times we've tested this. And it's funny, people argue about this. If you're doing like a lead gen site, you've probably got somebody in your organization that says, well, we need to have, this much information, and we need to have this to make sure that it's absolutely a qualified lead. No, you don't. Okay. Figure out what your least number of fields are, and test it. And because we've learned over the years that the more is better, okay, or less is more, I should say. So have less fields, you'll get higher conversion rates. You will have a lower abandonment rate. So here's an example, and this is an older example, but I'm just so horrified by this, and I've always been horrified by this. This was a test that we did for a client, and they had first name, spouse's name, last name, email, home phone, work phone, cell phone. I might as well have continued out, and they got more stuff here, but it felt like, and what did you have for lunch? Did you enjoy your lunch? I mean, these questions are just out and out stupid, okay? Do I really need all of those questions to be able to be a lead? And the answer was no when we worked with them. And we turned all of that from the left to what we see on the right here. And this increased the conversion rate by 51%. Again, sit with your team and really push back on, do we really need to have this information on the form? When we talk to the client, or can we send them a follow-up email for more information? Can we at least convert them as a lead immediately? Do we have to have all of these fields? You can test it, and you will find that your conversion rate will go up dramatically. I'll give you one more example on lowering form fields. Again, this is going to be a little different. This is a downloadable guide, right? And it's obviously a lead gen site, and the before and after look very similar. The only difference is the number of fields. And here's the thing: to download a free guide for hearing aids, And think about this. What do you really need to download a free guide? Do you need first name, last name, street, city, state? That's all that's on here. Zip, coastal, email, daytime phone, alternate phone. How can we help? Do we need all of this stuff? And the answer is no. Here's what you need to give them an instant download. Absolutely nothing. You can give people a download without requiring anything. Well, what do you measure in that case? Well, that's a little harder to test because here's the difference. You can measure it as opposed to testing it. If you don't have any fields to see where your leads are coming from, in the download guide, what you would have to do is have a really qualified, wonderful, high presentation value download guide. And in it, you would have great calls to action because you've earned the right, because you've earned their trust, you've earned the right to ask for the next step, which would be to give you information. And when you do that, the number of qualified prospects you get or leads goes way up. But most companies aren't comfortable with what we call, progressive disclosure and non-gating the first item. So with that in mind, this company wasn't comfortable either. They went here. This did an increase of 17%. Again, the less number of fields you have, the higher your conversion rate. And so I know this may be an argument within your organizations, but I'm telling you, less is more, and you would be better served not to have, massive numbers of fields. And you can test it really easily. You just have to be prepared for the pushback within your agency. Okay, next on the list, trust symbols in the header. Okay, so why test this? We really need to make people feel good. This is all about, how do I feel about this site? It makes it easier for me to be able to, continue in the next stage in their journey. So what are we measuring? We're measuring conversion rate, obviously. Well, first off, we're a conversion rate optimization agency, so we're always measuring conversion rate, but it's a good thing to measure. We're looking at the bounce rate and we're looking for the time on site. And on the time on site here, and we want the time to go up. Okay, we want them to be more comfortable and be able to explore more pages on the site. So with that in mind, here's another example. Again, same exact website, okay, before and after. And, are there any trust symbols in the header? And by the way, trust symbols in the header, this affects not just the home page, but this affects all the pages they land on, and it's reinforcing that trust over and over and over again. So on the left-hand side, we've got, basically no trust. You're just supposed to believe me, I guess. I really don't know. On the right-hand side, and I do know that there was a massive increase in conversions. Look at the volume of trust here. And I'm going to point out, when I went to my drawing tool, it changed. But look at all the trust here. Over 200,000 customers, quality guaranteed, formulated in the United States, a phone number here, okay, all in the header. Okay, so no matter what page I'm on, I'm going to see that trust. Now, they also added other trust on here. They've added on the home page, they've added some trust here. They've added this Norton guarantee, on here. Actually, I take it back. The Norton guarantee is the only trust that they had on the left-hand side. That's interesting. So I'll give them one piece of trust over here. But look at all the trust that they've got here. And we happen to know for a fact that their conversion rate changed dramatically. And so this really does answer the question, how do I feel about this? And it makes me, and they feel good about this. This is really clear. So just to recap here, the three questions that we're always trying to answer is, am I in the right place? How do I feel about this page or this site? And what am I supposed to do here? And so the examples that I've given you, which are some simple ones that we know work over and over and over again, because literally we've tested this on hundreds, if not thousands of pages, these 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100 will give you an increase in conversion rate. So with that in mind, feel free to contact me at marty@sitetuners.com, or you can reach me on my office number. And of course, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. Having said all of the above, let me make an offer. My staff will provide a free review of your conversion rate optimization efforts. And we're all about taking action. So this is available to the first 5 people who send an email to me at marty@sitetuners.com. And the title should be Review My Conversions. And we're more than happy to help, but it's for the first 5. Now, having said that, and knowing that this is recorded, and if you're watching this, we'll say, I don't know, 2 weeks, a month later, don't give up. Feel free to still send me this email, and every month we'll look and take maybe the top two or the first two that come in on a once a month basis for the next, we'll say, few months or so. But for this recording right now, the people who are watching it right when it was produced, the first 5 people who send me that email will get the free review of your efforts. Anyway, thank you, and I look forward to hearing your emails. And now let's turn this back over to Rohit. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Marty. That was a great presentation, and I in fact had a few questions while I was reviewing your presentation. So the first question that I have for you is, we get this question a lot, that if I know that this is something that would actually help improve my website conversion rate, and I want to test it, why should I actually go ahead and A/B test this?
Well, that's a fair question. There's a couple answers to that. The first answer is, these best practices really do work 9 out of 10 times, but every site is different. And I don't know in the audience what might be different about somebody's site. So to have a blanket statement that says, test this and it will always 100% of the time work, frankly, that's a little arrogant, okay? And so I'm willing to say 9 out of 10, 95 out of 100, but not 100% of the time. So with that in mind, you really do need to test and measure everything. So that's number one. Your site may be different. You need to test. The second thing is, especially if you've been running tests that, frankly, are not producing results. And by the way, we're big fans of tests that don't produce a winner, because you learn even from losers. We're completely okay with a test not winning, because you should learn from it. The problem is, there may be management in your organization goes, well, we didn't make any money. This test was a failure. And they may not understand that you can learn from, a test that loses. So with that in mind, by throwing in tests that you're pretty sure are going to work, and that you can attribute some monetary value, so you can prove ROI every once in a while, that buys you the extra bandwidth to run some other tests that you're not sure about, where you've got a hypothesis, you don't know if it's going to work, you think it will, and maybe it becomes a loser, but you made a money on this test, which was a best practices test, and then you do a couple that maybe didn't work, and then you do another best practices test. You're stacking the deck in your favor to be able to do some of the harder tests. That's one of the reasons why you need to do this.
Right, that makes perfect sense. Marty, another question that we often get from a lot of folks who are starting off with testing for the first time is that, how does an organization decide what to test first, and how long does that test have to typically run?
Okay, well, there's a couple answers into that. So when you're starting out testing, and I applaud people's enthusiasm, we've seen people come up with really difficult, convoluted tests. That's not where you start, okay? It's just not, all right? You need to start with, again, I'm going to go back to the obvious wins, all right? For 2 reasons, and not really difficult tests. You want to get comfortable with your testing tool, which I'm hoping is Visual Website Optimizer for all of you people on the call. But you really need to get comfortable with the tool. And then you need to be able to show, again, to management what's going on. So you want to start with, some of the more obvious things that should produce, a win. Now, here's where people really go south, is they don't test long enough. Tests, from our experience, need to run in increments of 7 days. And the reasons they need to run in increments of 7 days is because that takes into account, time of day variance and day of week variance. All right. So yes, you can get significance. Let's say you run a test, they've got such a high volume that you get significance, in 3 or 4 days. I mean, it happens. And, it was Monday through Thursday and you got significance, right? And then you say, all right, we call the test and it's a winner. But your traffic on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is a completely different traffic potentially. And we've seen this, where all of a sudden your winning test during the week is not a winning test on the weekend. And it's not crazy to actually personalize your site to have 2 different versions of these pages, depending upon the source and time and date of traffic. So tests really should run for 7 days. You should be testing simple things first. And then when you get a little bit more sophisticated, I would start looking at not just testing different hypotheses on what should be on the pages. You should also start to look at your traffic and your traffic sources. Because I will tell you, the next quick win that you can have is to test by traffic source. And what I mean by that is your PPC traffic will convert different than your social traffic, which converts different than your organic traffic, okay, and so on. And maybe your affiliate traffic. I don't know all your sources of traffic, but by setting up your testing sources and then looking at how each channel of traffic is interacting with those pages, you can then start to use these testing tools to truly optimize your site by traffic source. And of course, it goes without saying, I would hope, that is also by, device type. So, mobile versus desktop. So having said all that, all right, step one is you start with, some of the easier stuff, okay? Step two is you start to do some more complicated testing, especially by traffic source. And then you always, even with your simple test, run in increments of 7 days, all right? And you may find from that you have to have different variations of, it could be daytime traffic versus nighttime traffic. It could be weekday traffic versus weekend traffic, or all of the above. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but there's a lot. I could go on for 30 minutes on answering that question. So.
No, that made perfect sense, Marty. Thanks a lot for that. I know that you mentioned a little while ago to me that you're writing a book. Would love for our audience if they could hear more from you about some nuggets and from that particular book and when it's going to be released.
Okay, sure. Well, I'm writing a book. We have at SiteTuners, we've written a couple of books over the years. And this book is one that I'm authoring, and it's True Connections, Relationship Marketing in a Digital World. And it's basically all about answering the three questions that we've just talked about and how that relates to conversions. And the book is frankly, it's written already. I have an editor going through. It's all of 10 chapters long. I have an editor going through all of these chapters as we speak. And the goal is to have this thing published in September, October at the latest of this year. And if this is something that interests you, send me a link and send me an email. Like you already got my email address at marty@sitetuners.com. And I will let you know when it's published and where you can get a copy. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to receiving a copy of that, and so will our audience. Lastly, I'm pretty sure that the audience would love to connect with you. I think you've already left your social handle and your contact details in your presentation. Any other social forums, anywhere else that you typically are more open to talk about conversion rate optimization, where our audience can connect with you?
Everybody's different. Yes, I have a Twitter account. We have a Twitter account that is managed by our staff, which is, at SiteTuners. But the best way to contact me, I'm a big fan of one-on-one. So if you have a question or really just need a little help, just send me an email, give me a call. I have a team of people who'd be more than happy to help you. And I'm more than happy to talk to you myself. So that's always the best way. And of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. So with that being said, Robert, you and I are connected on LinkedIn, right, buddy?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We are.
Okay. So all good. Anyway, I'm here for you, and we wish you the best in higher conversion. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Marty, for participating in Convex today.
My pleasure.